Lauren, let me know when we're ready.
We're good to go.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the event. This event is entitled The State of Paid Leave, a discussion on paid leave in the United States and in New Jersey. And the event is in honor of Women's History Month. The event's being co-sponsored by New Jersey Citizen Action in partnership with the New Jersey Time to Care Coalition and Yarrow Women Cole, who facilitates the coalition and is staff at New Jersey Citizen Action, is also with us today. We want to just start out with a little context. First of all, we have some wonderful leaders you're going to hear from. We hope you can stay with us for an hour. But with the majority of women in the workplace now and families really being all varieties now, we really feel strongly that the time has come for all people in all places to have access to paid family leave. We must reshape our economy to better value caregiving so that workers can take time to care for loved ones and heal from illnesses themselves without risking job loss or income insecurity. Many of us have had personal and intimate experiences with paid family leave or the lack of it. The pandemic, however, has really taken out a black marker and underscored and highlighted why we need paid family leave so much, why it's such a crystal clear imperative for families, but also for our economy, and why we need it to be both strong, comprehensive, and we need it right away. We can no longer continue to be the only industrialized country in the nation that has no paid family leave program, no national paid family leave program. Families and caregiving are really the most important part of our nation's infrastructure. So when we talk about recovery from the pandemic and we look at things like bridges and tunnels, and we're building back better, we must build back better with supports for caregiving for families. They're just as important. Many people may not know this, but just in the last few years, states have really stepped up to pass paid family leave programs. So we have in our country 9 states, and as well as the District of Columbia with a paid family leave program. New Jersey was actually the 2nd state to adopt, and we adopted our program in 2009. And then last year, with the leadership of Governor Murphy and the leaders in the legislature, we were able to greatly expand and improve our program and especially make it better so that low-income working people could access the program. Just as in New Jersey, a national paid leave program must be designed to work for the most vulnerable workers, first and foremost, the ones who need it the most. This is how we devise an equitable program that will work for everyone by centering lower income vulnerable workers. Today, as we discuss with our wonderful leaders, our hopes for a strong national paid leave program, we will highlight New Jersey's program as an example to emulate. In particular, we want to just lift up a few items or components of the New Jersey program that really make our program, we think, a standout program, and we want to see and think is essential for the national program. Number one, our program is now a 12-week program. So it was doubled in the number of weeks, and we think that is important that parents and people taking care of sick loved ones have the maximum time or the time that they need. Number two, our program has increased the wage replacement, making it more likely that lower income workers, as well as middle and higher income workers, do take the program. So having adequate wage replacement is an essential element of a strong paid leave program. Number three, an inclusive definition of family. By that we mean literally that our program now doesn't define who is a loved one and that you might need to care for. So it used to be parents and kids and a few other family members would qualify you to use the program. Now it's literally, who do you consider family, your chosen family, your loved ones? You think that type of definition is the right type of definition for a strong program. And last, job protection embedded in the program. Job protection is essential. Workers can't take paid leave if they fear losing their job. And here, this is an item that New Jersey can do better on and should do better on. So these components are fundamental if we're going to make paid family leave work for all people in this country. So before we begin the discussion, I just want to give a couple of housekeeping items. First, I just want to let you know that some of the leaders who are joining us today will have to come in and out of the program. So we'll try to keep it as smooth as possible. But we do hope you'll stay with us for the hour. Last, please, if you have questions, type them into the Q&A function, so not the chat, so that we can track them, and we will do our best to get your questions answered. And if we don't, certainly we will work to follow up with you after the seminar to get your answers to your questions. So with that, I would like to introduce the Honorable First Lady Tammy Murphy, who has been an advocate and a strong voice for all New Jerseyans, but who has especially led the effort here in New Jersey to end the Black maternal health crisis. So First Lady, thank you so much for being here and being with us today.
Good morning, everyone. Dina, thank you so much for that introduction and for your leadership at New Jersey Citizen Action. This organization has been a steadfast partner and ally to New Jersey families, and on behalf of the governor and myself, we are so grateful for all you have done to advocate for meaningful changes that truly support the well-being of families. And I am thrilled to see that Senator Cory Booker and Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill are also participating in today's program. Two of New Jersey's families' greatest advocates and champions. I would also like to recognize Wendy Chun-Hoon, Director of the United States Department of Labor Women's Bureau. Thank you for your partnership at the federal level. Whenever I'm invited to speak on issues relating to New Jersey's families, women, and mothers, that particular word, partnership, comes up again and again. Through Nurture NJ, our initiative to combat New Jersey's maternal and infant health crisis, I've been able to learn and understand that partnership is necessary because our families' most challenging issues are deeply entwined. This means that no matter how well thought out our plans, no matter our level of commitment or our determination, we will not be successful if we work in silos. We can only truly succeed together, which is why I am so grateful to see this incredible team of elected officials, activists, advocates, private and public sector experts, and more assembled and communicating through events like this particular one. Nurture NJ is laser focused on combating our state's shameful maternal health crisis. But our statewide strategic plan takes a whole of government approach, recognizing that increasing access to prenatal care is simply not enough to save our moms and our babies. Access to paid leave for mothers and fathers is a factor. Access to Medicaid postpartum is a factor. Implicit bias is a factor. Institutional racism is a factor. Access to transportation is a factor. Access to nutritious food is a factor. I think you understand, I could go on. So I'm thrilled to see so much work being done to improve these issues and countless lives. I was proud when Phil expanded and improved our state's paid leave program to allow more mothers, fathers, and caregivers much needed time off to care for themselves, their newborns, and their loved ones. Our paid leave program is now one of the most generous in the nation. And the importance of paid leave in improving maternal and infant health outcomes cannot be understated. Paid leave allows moms the necessary time both before and after childbirth to focus on themselves and their growing family without the stress that comes with worrying whether they will have a job to return to when they're prepared. We've also seen the importance of paid leave throughout the pandemic. Phil expanded protections in the program not once, but twice last year to ensure our New Jersey families do not have to choose between caring for a loved one with COVID and keeping their job. And we'll continue to do more to strengthen our program as we move forward. Earlier this year, we released our Nurture NJ Maternal and Infant Health Strategic Plan, a roadmap to make New Jersey the safest and most equitable place in the nation to deliver and raise a baby. One of the over 70 recommendations in the plan specifically focuses on working with employees and employers to expand utilization of the program. The changes we have made and will make in the future reflect a greater pattern that we've seen again and again across our state this past year. From our youngest residents to our federal, state, and local governments, to our business community and more, New Jerseyans want to take care of one another. That is how we are getting through this pandemic. That is how we are strengthening our state. And that is how we will achieve Nurture NJ's vision together as partners. So I thank you all for your incredible advocacy, and I urge you to continue the good work. And with that, it is now my honor to introduce one of our most dedicated partners and a critical force behind our paid leave expansion, New Jersey's Department of Labor Commissioner Rob Asaro-Angelo.
You do on behalf of New Jerseyans. We've been really proud to be partnered with your office on so many things in the 3 years of the Murphy administration. Thank you to Dina and Yarrow, NJ Citizen Action, Time to Care Coalition for having me here today. And we're so proud to be here to talk about our administration of paid family leave and medical benefits to workers in New Jersey. As you may know, benefits are paid to workers who are injured outside of the workplace, including workers who are unable to work because of pregnancy or pregnancy complications. These benefits are covered by state temporary disability insurance, which both employers and most workers pay into. The length of benefits is determined by a doctor's assessment of their need. For pregnant and birthing parents, this typically is four weeks before the due date and 6 to 8 weeks after birth. Benefits are also paid to workers who need time away from work to bond with a new family member, such as a newborn or adopted child, or to care for a loved one. Bonding or caregiving leave benefits are available for 12 weeks for parents of any gender or caregivers of any familial type relationship. All employees, except federal and military workers in New Jersey, pay into this program called Family Leave Insurance. All benefits are paid at 85% of weekly wages, up to $903 a week. I want to give a shout out to our TDI FLI, that means Temporary Disability Insurance or Family Leave Insurance, Director Jeff Flatley and his great team for getting these expanded benefits up and running. The leadership of Governor Murphy and our legislative branch has allowed us to meaningfully expand the amount and length of benefits we offer to our workers, the types of relationships covered for caregiving leave, and allowances for workers with multiple jobs. And in doing so, New Jersey has made significant strides toward equitable access to paid family leave, but we know we have more to do. A little over 50% of gestational parents in New Jersey are using TDI or FLI, but only 18% are using both. And something that really bothers me is that only 8% of non-gestational parents are using family leave at all. To reiterate, the true challenge is not just the creation of policy or the technology to implement, but rather is making our most vulnerable populations aware of the rights, protections, and programs available to them and ensuring equity in access. While we are pleased to know that over half of the New Jersey population knows about paid family leave, we recognize there are real barriers to usage, including concerns about job protections while on leave. In New Jersey, job protection is offered under two separate laws, the Federal Family Medical Leave Act and the New Jersey Family Leave Act, administered by the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights. We are proud of the strides we've made to integrate information on benefits with information on job protection. It was not so long ago that information on our website failed to acknowledge the reality that if you don't present job protection and wage replacement benefits together, the information on the benefit is next to meaningless for the worker who fears losing their job. This month we released a new document inspired by our work with the New America's Better Life Lab, thanks to Tara McGinnis, and the New Practice Lab, which allows workers to view our benefit program side by side with the job protections available. Major kudos to Jillian Gutierrez and Holly Lowe from our comms team, who have made really great strides in making all of our outreach and communications about all Department of Labor programs much easier to understand and access for all customers and potential claimants. Paid family medical leave in New Jersey has been a bright spot during this pandemic. When caretaking needs skyrocketed in the spring of 2020, our staff jumped into action to help direct thousands of claimants to the program that best met their situation and their needs, whether the expanded federal pandemic unemployment assistance program or our New Jersey paid family leave and medical programs. We are lucky to live in a state that values caretaking and values the bonds between loved ones. At the Department of Labor, we will not stop in our work to make the program easier to understand, more efficient in the delivery of much needed benefits, and more equitable in the access to all New Jersey workers have for paid family leave. Nor will we stop spreading the message of positive effects these benefits have on families in our state and our economy. I know our team fields calls from literally dozens of other jurisdictions, states, cities, counties, what have you, to find out what has worked in New Jersey. And we're always happy to help and always honest about our challenges as well. So thank you all for being great partners with us on all this stuff. We look forward to working together with you to further expand our programs and make them more equitable, make them more accessible, and make them more beneficial for all who need them. Thank you again for all your hard work.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's great to hear from Commissioner Asaro-Angelo and all the great work that he does for the workers of our state. I next want to introduce Brian Mcdonald, who is a member of CWA Local 1036. He's a forester. He works for the New Jersey Forest Service, a new dad, and he's going to share his story and introduce our next speaker. Brian.
Thank you, Dina, and thank you for letting me share my experience today. My wife, Elise, and I have a 6-month-old son, Connor, who was born September 29th, 2020. I took 12 weeks of paid family leave for child bonding in order to be at home and spend those first 3 months of his life with him and with my wife. My wife, Elise, and I were so excited when we found out we were going to have our first child. We both wanted to take as much time as possible when he was born so that we could both be at home with him. As everyone says, truly, you just never get that time back. So I knew that even under the current situation of mainly working from home, I wanted to be able to devote my complete attention to my family. No work emails, phone calls, etc. As I'm sure everyone that has a child can tell me, it's stressful and tiring enough as it is. So in a nutshell, when we started doing our research about taking that time off, we realized a few things. New Jersey had literally just passed or just put into action the expanded FMLA legislation. So I was really going to benefit from that. My wife works in Pennsylvania and did not have anywhere near the benefits that I received. So if I were not entitled to the recently expanded New Jersey FMLA as it currently stands, that is, if he had been born literally just a few months earlier, I honestly can say that I would not have been able to financially take as much time off to be at home with my son and my wife. So sort of as a sidebar, my wife's from Spain, and while we were doing our homework, we realized the difference between family leave here and there. We both realized that it was really necessary for us both to take as much time off. We had everything lined up with our employers, all the paperwork, as the commissioner just said. It honestly was very easy to do, and we were just over the moon. We were just so excited. About a month before his due date, the doctors told us that he was going to be delivered early due to a potential growth restriction. So 3 weeks before his due date, they induced labor and he was born. He spent the first week of his life in the NICU and has had to go to doctor's appointments every 2 to 3 weeks for checkups to make sure he's maintaining his weight and some other issues. Without the opportunity to take that time off and to know that we were secure financially, know that I had a job to go back to after those 12 weeks, all of those things would have been so much more stressful than they already were. And that's with a beautiful, healthy baby. So that is my experience. And I would just finally like to say thank you to everyone who's fought for where we are now and for things to get better. If you can't tell, I'm a huge proponent of the program, and personally and my family benefited greatly. I believe everyone should have the same opportunity and peace of mind. So I would like to now I have the privilege of introducing our next speaker, Congresswoman Mikie Sherrill. Congresswoman Sherrill represents New Jersey's 11th Congressional District. She's a strong advocate for working families and a co-sponsor of the Federal Family and Medical Insurance Leave Act. Thank you, Congresswoman, for your support and for leading the fight to make the Family Act a reality for all.
Well, thank you, and thanks so much for sharing your story, Brian. Hi, everyone. I want to thank the New Jersey Citizen Action and the New Jersey Time to Care Coalition for hosting this event and for inviting me to participate. I'm in good company. First Lady Tammy Murphy, Senator Cory Booker, and Rob Asaro-Angelo are incredible advocates for New Jersey women and families. I also want to thank Brian again for sharing his story and really showing everyone that paid family leave isn't just a women's issue, it's really a family issue. As many of you may know, I'm the mother of 4 kids, currently between the ages of 9 and 15. I had my first child when I was in law school, and both my husband and I was either in school or working, and he was working from the start. And it's tough. You know, especially with our first child, you really don't understand how childcare works very well in this country, many of us, until you start to try, you begin to look for how you're going to care for your child after they're born. And so many of our childcare centers don't take newborns. So that provides an additional burden on family members, on parents, as they're trying to figure out how they're going to continue working. And so that's why we need the voices of working moms in Congress. Right now, there are only really a handful of us with school-age children. We have a group called Moms in the House, where we can talk about how we balance our jobs and commuting back and forth to Washington and homeschooling our kids during the pandemic, but also discussing ways in which the federal government can become a leader in childcare policies. As the nation's largest employer, it's critical that the federal government adopt family-friendly policies. And I've made a point to lead by example. My office has 12 weeks paid parental leave, and I know that many of the other members who came into Congress in 2018 set that same standard for their offices. In the last Congress, we fought to ensure that 12 weeks of paid parental leave for all federal employees was included in the National Defense Authorization Act. It's funny because I think that was one of the most progressive pieces of legislation we were able to get through Congress. We did it in the must-pass National Defense Authorization Act with very little fanfare. Many of you on this call might not have even heard that that happened. So I'm working hard now to make sure that this policy is properly implemented and that service members, their families, and other federal employees have access to this leave. In the 116th Congress, we made progress in the House passing meaningful paid leave legislation for non-federal workers with bills such as the Family Act and Healthy Families Act. The Family Act would create a national paid leave program that allows people to receive a portion of their pay when they need time away from their jobs for family or medical reasons, resulting in significant benefits for their families, businesses, and for our economy. The Healthy Families Act would set a national earned sick day standard. It would allow workers and businesses with 15 or more employees to earn up to 7 job-protected paid sick days each year to be used to recover from their own illnesses, access to preventative care, provide care to a sick family member, or attend school meetings related to a child's health condition or disability. President Biden recently signed into law the American Rescue Plan. And in addition to tackling the immediate public health crisis, it really is a once-in-a-generation piece of legislation that has the potential to rebuild and better our country for decades to come. The American Rescue Plan provides a new round of $1,400 checks to Americans and creates a new child benefit that provides parents with $3,000 per child, $3,600 per child under the age of 6. And together, these policies will cut child poverty by over 50%, lifting over 5 million children out of poverty and helping families across the country. This is really amazing, given that in the developed world, the United States consistently ranks last among child poverty percentages. So the law also includes $15 billion to expand child care assistance through the Child Care and Development Block Grant, that's CCDBG, to aid families and childcare providers aimed to specifically help parents who are essential workers. I was often asked in 2018, how could I run for Congress with 4 kids? And I said, I have 4 kids, how could I not run for Congress? Washington makes decisions every day that are going to impact the lives of our children and my children and generations to come. So I want to make sure we're at the table when those decisions are being made. In the past, paid family leave wasn't a concern in Congress. It was only 2 years ago when Sammy Duckworth became the first member of Congress to give birth while an elected official. America is an outlier against its peer nations when it comes to paid family leave, and it is long past time we fix that. So I hope with the next administration in place and a majority in the Senate, we have the opportunity to enact paid family leave for everyone in America once and for all, and I promise to keep fighting until it is. So thanks again, and I'll hand it over now for questions.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman, for being with us, for your heartfelt comments and your important points that you've made. And thank you, Brian, also for joining us and telling us your story, and congratulations to you. Next, I'm going to introduce, we will get to questions shortly, Congresswoman. We're going to have Director Chun-Hoon, Wendy, join us from the Department of Labor's Women's Bureau now. Wendy has been an important partner and worked with a lot of states and advocates who have moved paid leave policy forward. So we're very pleased to have her with us today.
Thank you, Dina, for that kind introduction. And thanks to all the leadership of all the distinguished speakers before me. Dina just mentioned this. I've had the pleasure of working with you and Yarrow and the Time to Care Coalition over the past decade in the role that I held before coming to the Women's Bureau. And, you know, I think a major reflection, which is coming through on this call, is that lessons from New Jersey's paid leave program really have influenced the policy design and therefore the results and the impact of programs in other states across the country, and also what folks are considering presently and how to design a national program. So thank you for all your leadership there. I'm sort of coming off of a week that was chock full of discussion about the gender wage gap and the fact that women still only make 82 cents on the man's dollar, and that women need to work almost 3 months into the year to catch up to what their male counterparts were paid last year. And those are just averages. We know that women of color actually need to work many more months to make up those losses. And just kind of reflecting on women's outsized caregiving roles and you know, undoubtedly how they contribute to this gender wage gap. So, you know, I'm sort of reflecting on, you know, even before the pandemic, moms were spending nearly twice the number of hours each week on caregiving and housework than their male counterparts. And so, you know, it's no surprise then that compared with fathers, mothers have experienced more pronounced losses in workforce participation since the pandemic began. And we might all know too well from our own personal experience with schools and childcare shut down, you know, moms have left the workforce. Our data are showing that 1.6 million fewer moms with kids under 18 were working this January as opposed to last January. That's a loss of about 6.5% of working moms, compared with about 5.1% of working fathers. Moms of young kids face the biggest drops in employment over the past year. Black moms experience the steepest decline in employment over the last year. And sort of stepping back from this picture of what's happened to moms' labor force participation during the pandemic, women in general have experienced steeper declines in employment than men. So 4.2 million fewer women workers in February of this year than the same point last year. And these are, you know, declines that have really erased gains in women's labor force participation rates over the last 30 years. So we're down to levels that are comparable to 1987. Just take that in for a second. You know, and again, the impact on women of color is nothing short of devastating. 9.7 fewer African-American women, 8.6 fewer Latinas were employed this February as opposed to just 1 year earlier. So the next thing that I would offer is a set of data to really kind of, again, frame the context for this discussion. And these are data that actually come from across the Department of Labor, so the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Chief Evaluation Office, also the Women's Bureau, and we're periodically studying workers' access to paid leave and also unpaid leave. And so all the data I'm about to share is also accessible on our website. But importantly, everything that I'm about to say was the case even before the impact of the pandemic. So what I'd lift out is that only about 20% of US workers have access to paid family leave through work. 56% of workers have access to unpaid FMLA, but only 38% of workers earning less than $15 an hour do. And many say they can't afford to use it. 2/3 of employees who receive partial or no pay on leave report experiencing difficulty in making ends meet. About 17% report relying on public assistance for support during that time. And so the last thing I'll share, I see Senator Booker just joined us, is that the Women's Bureau sponsors a module through a nationally representative survey called the American Time Use Survey. And so what I would say from there is access to paid leave for women, and it's like so many other conditions, really varies by race, where women of color have less access to paid leave. It varies by educational level, where women with bachelor's degrees are 4 times more likely to have access to paid leave. And it also importantly varies by occupational sector, where only about 1 in 3 women who are working in service occupations report any access to paid leave. And then among all working women, 1 in 10 report that there was some time in the prior month where they needed leave but did not take leave. And the most important reason they needed leave was for their own illness or medical condition at about 42%. But 1 in 5 also reported needing it to care for a sick family member. Women with no access to paid leave were about 5 times as likely as those with access to leave to say that they didn't take off, again, because they couldn't afford it. So as I mentioned earlier, these data really help to shape the context in which we're working, and also it was before the pandemic. So we have to imagine, the urgency at this point. Right before you joined us, Senator Booker, and I just want to catch you up, we've had a conversation so far about the impact of paid leave, and including, and we heard this from the First Lady, infant and maternal health and the crisis there. We heard from Commissioner Angelo about the work that the New Jersey Department of Labor is doing to boost participation in the important program and the improvements that you've made to your paid leave program there. We heard from Brian Mcdonald, who's a new dad, and he was talking about even the differences, first how grateful he and his family have been to connecting to New Jersey's program, but how different it is that he works in New Jersey and has access to New Jersey's program. His wife happens to work in Pennsylvania and has very different access to paid leave just by nature of where they work. And then we had Representative Sherrill right before me talking about, just the importance of childcare broadly, paid leave broadly, and her own leadership, including in her office, to implement a 12-week program for new parents. So I guess what I wanted to see if I could direct a question back, Representative Sherrill, and then maybe turn to you, Senator Booker. Just what are your thoughts on the importance of paid leave in fostering the well-being of workers, and as a key or core component for an equitable recovery for all at this point?
Well, Wendy, thanks so much for bringing to light so many of the issues that so many of us as working parents have faced. I have to tell you, I am not sure how some of our parents do it with jobs that don't allow for paid leave, paychecks that they desperately need to keep their families fed and in their home, and all of the various childcare requirements, including trips to the doctor, well baby visits, childhood checkups, vaccinations that need to occur. Some of us have children on medication, med checks that occur regularly. It's really difficult to keep up with all of that. And when we're looking at the disparate outcomes that we've seen in our healthcare system, it's easy to see why in some communities, the community as a whole has such bad outcomes. When you're relying on that generation that so many people call the squeeze generation, this generation where we're taking care of our children, we're taking care of our parents, and then we're trying to hold down a full-time job at the same time, and with no paid parental leave, you're really just not able to sometimes get your kids to those doctor's visits. I know I had a year where I was just really getting crushed at work, and I called to set up a checkup, a yearly checkup for my daughter, And I had thought she had been in last September, that's her birthday. She hadn't been in since the September before. And the doctor's asking me what happened. I just kind of was stunned. I looked at the doctor and I said, I don't know what happened. I'm sorry about that. But, you know, when you're talking about how difficult it can be, and it's hard enough balancing all this with your job, but if you don't have paid leave and you really can't take off just to get your kid to the doctor, that's not giving our economy good outcomes. It's not allowing people to participate in the workforce. Some parents find they just can't participate in the workforce without that kind of leave. So no one benefits when parents are forced to make the terrible choice between getting a paycheck and caring for a new child.
It's an honor to be on with everyone, and obviously I'm grateful for the First Lady's leadership and advocacy. I'm grateful for the Congresswoman, and she is just, it's really been one of the great things that's happened to me as a senator is to have her join in the New Jersey delegation and in a very quick time take up leadership on national issues that so deeply affect our state. This is an issue for me that is one where it's hard not to be outraged that we are such an outlier on the planet Earth for developed nations. I mean, the Congo and Afghanistan have paid family leave programs, and we do not have a national paid family leave program. And you know, one of my moments I remember the most with my mom was when I was a melodramatic 7th grader who had the chicken pox, and I was laying in an oatmeal bath and she was getting ready to go to work, to a business trip actually. And I said to her with as persuasive a tone as I could, I said, "Mom, if you leave me, I will die." And she looked at me and smiled and went to the phone. I still remember this, her having a conversation on the phone, hanging up the phone, changing into her sweatpants and sitting with me because she worked for a company that had really understanding paid family leave policies. And you fast forward for the second half of my life, where I went from two corporate executive parents living in Harrington Park to now living in the Central Ward of Newark, New Jersey, in a census tract that is where my neighbors don't mistake wealth with worth. They work full-time jobs, often longer hours than my parents, but live with the brutal reality that they are at the margins of our economy. That my census tract, the median income according to the census 10 years ago was $14,000 per household. And I write about this in my book, about this amazing human being that I encountered sitting at an IHOP on Bergen Street in Newark, a woman named Natasha Laurel. And I quickly found out that all the other servers and workers in that IHOP called her Mama Tasha, because she just had this extraordinary gift of love. I mean, she was one of those servers that you came in, you felt her energy. And I got to know her and interviewed her. She was for this book because her story was so emblematic of the I would say the violence that we put families through. So she worked at the IHOP, caught extra shifts where she could, but she still needed subsidies for housing here in New Jersey. And she was trying to raise three Black boys in the projects in Newark. And on top of that, she needed food stamps, a full-time worker at a restaurant that still needed extra support just to feed her family. And then I remember just the emotion of her telling me, you know, the asthma rates in places like Newark are 3 times higher than they are in suburban towns that I grew up. And a Black child with asthma has about a 10 times more likely rate to die from asthma complications than a white child with asthma. And so she told me the gut-wrenching story of having her son, if anybody knows the IHOP in Newark, it's across the street from University Hospital. And her son is in the emergency room with an asthma attack, threatening his life. And she had to make this terrible decision about, do I stay here and get this paycheck that I need because I'm living paycheck to paycheck to keep a roof over my child's head and to stay on top of all the expenses, all the bills, or do I rush to my child's side when he's literally gasping for breath? This is a cruel, cruel reality affecting parents all across our country who already are struggling. I gave a talk this week about the child tax credit and how children in poverty, you literally see in brain scans, their brain affected by the constant stress hormones and cortisol that is akin to a person having a car accident every day, an adult. Already living with these challenges, children at the poverty line face at least about an eviction or two during their early childhood years. These are the things we do to families in America that are just unconscionable and unacceptable. And it is wounding our economy. We are all suffering as a result of our failure to provide a paid family leave system. And so I'm proud of my state for the leadership we see, but there is a greater urgency in this country. Every day there are Mama Tasha's stories, and literally to hundreds of thousands, millions of parents who are facing the agony of not being able to do what my mom did in a matter of course, to stay with a child, to be there for them when they are going through an illness far more serious in many cases than the chicken pox. And so I live with this urgency in the Senate. It's why I'm a original co-sponsor of the Family Act, which would establish national paid family leave and more flexibility to working moms and parents like Natasha. It's why I'm the original co-sponsor of the Healthy Family Act, which would provide more critical protections for workers dealing with illness or caring for a sick family member. This is a crisis in our country, and we all have to begin to demand that these are not just proposed legislation, but that we make this the law of our land. We will all have a better and more thriving economy, thriving states of well-being, more productive children over the course of their lifetimes if we get this done.
Senator Booker, thank you so much for being with us today and for your comments. Can you hang for a minute? We have one more question for you, but we want to ask, thank you.
Sure.
Representative, we'll be back to you. Representative Sherrill, do you have one more minute, or do we need to say goodbye to you?
Sure, I have one more minute, thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna be quick. So to both of you, I wanted to just to ask, what do you see as the path forward for passing the paid leave bill in our country or in Congress, and how can we ensure that the program we adopt can reach those who need it the most?
So I think that's a great question, and and as you can see, the New Jersey delegation has such wonderful members. So I'm really excited because now we finally have the opportunity to have Democratic leadership in the Senate as well, so we can hopefully start to implement some of these great policies now that we have a, albeit slim, majority in both of our houses. I know that, as I mentioned, the federal government is our largest employer, so we can impact millions of families by implementing paid family leave across the board in the federal government. And I'm hopeful, as Senator Booker mentioned, the Family Act and Healthy Families Act to create programs to support paid family leave. I know President Biden's expressed interest in mandating this through future legislation. So with his support and the advocacy of Democrats in both chambers, I think we can get this done for American families. And I know something that I think probably the senator has, I know the senator has a lot more insight into, but I am concerned about the filibuster and how we get some of these, with our slim majority, how we work to get some of these great programs through the Senate. Some of this I think we could do, like I said, we were able last cycle to put it in the National Defense Authorization Act, which is a must-pass bill. So there are creative ways that we can get good legislation passed for families, because really this shouldn't be a partisan issue when we're talking about our American families. But I am interested to hear the senator's thoughts as well. And I might have to have somebody tell me about the senator's thoughts, because I may have to run. But I do thank you.
So much, Representative.
It's been such an honor to be here with all of you, and Senator Booker, always fantastic to hear you, and always wonderful to hear your stories about the lives that are so impacted by our work. So thank you so much.
Thanks for all that you do for us. Senator, did you want to take a shot at that?
Absolutely. We we know what the situation is in the Senate. We are in a situation, we do not have a filibuster-proof majority, and we have a 60 vote threshold for most things. Though I will say, we have been working with the White House on a package that we think should be able to pass through reconciliation that would have a larger vision for infrastructure. And in a global knowledge-based economy, the most important infrastructure is the well-being of people and doing things that empower their life infrastructure. And so there's a big push right now by me and a number of other senators to get everything included, from paid family leave, childcare. I'm actually leading the charge with Senators Bennett and Brown to make the child tax credit expansions permanent, which will get raised 50% of American families out of poverty, children out of poverty. So the question will be is, what will the parliamentarians say in terms of, is that something that can't go in a 50 vote reconciliation pathway or not? I think a lot of this is going to play out over the next coming weeks. This is a very timely discussion because the administration is going to put out its vision for what that sort of human infrastructure is going to be. I think in the next few weeks, we're going to see the sort of physical infrastructure issues, I think, coming out this week. So I know that this is a wildly bipartisan issue, because when you look at the American public, Republican, Democrat, independent, people support this. The question is the block of Republican senators who have not been getting on these bills that would give us that 60 vote threshold. The question is can we find a way around that or not? And this is going to play out in the coming months.
Thank you so much, Senator. We're really going to need your leadership, and you do a great job for us, for women and for families. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to take some question and answer. Thank you, Senator. So we're going to move to question and answer. I'm sorry that we had both Representative Sherrill and Senator Booker they only had a brief window to join us and had to both jump off, but we heartily thank both of them for being with us today, because we are going to be looking to them and their leadership to really carry us forward on paid family leave in Congress. So with that, I want to move to question and answer. I'm going to ask Director Chun-Hoon and Yarrow to join us for this part. So both of you come on. And
sure. Go ahead.
Yarrow, you're gonna take it away with the first question, yeah?
Yeah, I do have a question for Director Chun-Hoon. So Deborah Lancaster from Rutgers Center for Women in Work says, first, thank you for outlining the many challenges you have shared about what working women and working moms are confronting. What are some of the other issues that women face in terms of advancing in the workplace, and what do you hope to accomplish at the Women's Bureau?
Thanks, Yarrow. I hope we can shed the Director Chun-Hoon. we go way back. Well, I noticed, I want to get to that. Thank you, Deborah, for the question. I also noticed a question in the chat that was earlier on from Anita, so I thought I could just provide that data really quickly. Anita was asking, so what is the wage gap for Black women and also Latinas? So Black women are at 63% of their white non-Hispanic male counterparts, Hispanic women at 55.4%. So, at those rates, and I sort of mentioned this when I was talking, Black women have to work until this year, August 3rd, to catch up to their white male counterparts from last year, and Latinas October 21st. So just wanted to put a finer point on that. Thanks for the question. So to Deborah's question, I think, I'm feeling a huge urgency and responsibility, certainly within the Women's Bureau, but also within the Department of Labor, and certainly see the commitment across the administration to really think about women coming back to work for the many that have fallen out, and coming back to pathways to good jobs. So, one of the programs that the Women's Bureau has long implemented is called the Women in Apprenticeships and Non-Traditional Occupations, WANTO, by its acronym. And, what we're trying to do is really close the gap. I guess non-traditional occupations are considered, for women are considered when they are less than 25, when women are less than 25% of the, composition of that occupation. And I think we've made some good inroads, but the numbers are still too low. For example, women in the trades, still too low, right? Women in a lot of other key industries that are good jobs, still too low in terms of their participation in that sector, in that occupation, in that industry. So we need to step it up. We need to figure out at a much greater scale than what even we're able to accomplish with the WANTO program, how to make that happen. And I think there's a real opportunity as we come back from this pandemic economy to do things differently. So I would say, women and pathways to good jobs. I think, looking at, and I said earlier, coming off of this whole week of talking about the gender wage gap and really thinking about the impact of occupational segregation, also in terms of where women are working, right? Where are the majority of women working? Where are the highest concentrations, for example, for women of color, where are they working? And really looking at things like the care industry, right? The care infrastructure, the care sectors, and making sure that those jobs are good jobs. So a lot of the things that we've talked about today, and just, thinking, the entirety of this conversation has been about what are the things that have never quite worked, that absolutely serve to, perpetuate, exacerbate racial, gender, economic security and justice. Things like the lack of paid leave, things like inadequate, unaffordable childcare, things like, some gaps left in unemployment insurance, things like that. And really just addressing those very systemic things that often feel like, I think, Brian, I was really with your story earlier. They often feel like personal matters and they're not, they're systemic. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to really bringing to this vision for the Women's Bureau, for the Department of Labor in this moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Director Chun-Hoon, I know you don't want us to say that, but thank you. We're so excited to have you in this leadership position and looking out for women and for families at the Department of Labor. So I think we're going to move through a few more questions, but just definitely want to thank you for all your important contributions today.
Thank you so much. Talk soon.
Bye.
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks, Dina. So yeah, we do have some questions, really great questions. Unfortunately, we are getting close to the top of the hour. So I did just want to share several participants have asked questions sort of around how they can find out more about what benefits they may be able to access. And so in the, I hope you can see in the chat function, the website for New Jersey Department of Labor's paid family leave program. As the director of the New Jersey Department of Labor outlined when he spoke earlier, we have two paid leave programs, temporary disability insurance, as well as family leave insurance that can provide benefits for workers now up to 85% of their wages. And you can actually get a lot of great information online, myleavebenefits.nj.gov. So I put that there. Also, if you have specific needs that are not necessarily about what paid leave provides, but perhaps if you're facing not being able to work because you have to care for a child who is remote schooling, or other reasons that you need to take leave that are about COVID, you may be eligible still for the pandemic assistance, the pandemic unemployment assistance. And you can find that on the New Jersey Department of Labor's website, nj.gov/labor. I put in the chat. You can find more information there. And as always, you can reach out to us individually. I'm going to give you my email if you have questions about your rights, and we will follow up with you and get to all of your, if we have a way to contact you or you contact us, we'll follow up with you.
Great, thanks, Sherrill. Are there any more questions?
No, I think that's it. I mean,
okay.
We'll get to folks, yeah.
Okay, great. Well, then I have a question for you, which is, what can folks who are watching the webinar right now do to get involved in helping to make sure that we do get a paid leave for all program?
Yeah, thank you. So as folks have mentioned, the New Jersey Time to Care Coalition is working and really focused on promoting paid family leave. And we have some really great activities planned for New Jerseyans so they think they can get involved in this movement for paid leave for all. And it really is an exciting moment that we're in. We're really close to hopefully passing, as the speakers shared with us earlier, a federal paid family leave program. And so we're doing some activities. We are going to be planning a watch party of a short version of an amazing film called 0 Weeks, which is about how the US has 0 weeks of paid family leave. We're also developing a paid leave ambassador program so that everyday people can help us spread the word on social media and elsewhere about how they can access paid leave in New Jersey and really help increase awareness about paid leave here. To be notified of these events, we would like for you to sign up here. I'll share again in the chat the link where you can do that. We're going to be communicating with folks that way. Just sign up at this link and we'll be in touch with you. And most importantly, really, to win an effective national program, we need to hear personal stories like Brian's or other stories, all kinds of stories, really. And we're especially interested in hearing from people who needed to take paid family leave but could not because they were afraid of losing their job, or maybe you did lose your job, because that is unacceptable. And we can, of course, work together to change that. So you can share your story right now, or you can think about it a little bit, but here's the link in the chat of where you could actually go to share your story. You just leave a short summary and a way to contact you. You can always share this link with friends and family and help us really spread the word so that we can make a difference about getting paid leave to everybody and really removing that barrier for a lot of folks when they are afraid of taking leave because they don't have job protection. So that's something to think about. And then I actually want to invite a friend and an amazing advocate, Permelia Tony Boss, to share a bit of what she's experienced as someone who decided to share her story. She got really involved after her daughter was able to afford to take leave because of the New Jersey paid leave program. And so she took time off to care for her while she recovered from surgery. So Permelia, welcome. Can you join us?
Yes, can you hear me, Yarrow?
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Yarrow. Yes, my daughter was able to take New Jersey paid family leave to help care for me after I recovered from surgery. I was motivated to share my story and get involved in the movement for paid leave by my union, the New Jersey Time to Care Coalition, and Family Values at Work. I became a part of a group of workers who are raising their voices in the Paid Leave for All campaign to ensure we pass an equitable family paid leave program. Since I first shared my story in public about how New Jersey paid family leave benefited me, I have done so much. I've testified in Trenton and Washington, D.C. I've been interviewed, recorded in videos, helped write op-eds, spoken at press conferences, and met so many legislators and amazing advocates, more than I ever could have imagined. While it sometimes can still be a little nerve-wracking and outside my comfort zone, it is also a very rewarding experience. And I encourage you to get involved and join the movement for paid leave for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Permelia. I want to actually share with folks so that they can see that on this link here, in the Paid Leave for All campaign, across the country, the Voices of Workers, you are one of those that is spotlighted as part of this group on page 2 of this link. So you could see that Permelia has really stepped up, and it's been an amazing thing to have you be part of this group that is working to really make sure that individual stories are highlighted as we're working towards passing permanent federal paid leave for all. So thank you for your efforts. Actually, we are concluding our program now. I don't know if Dina, you had any final comments, but I just want to say thanks to Permelia for sharing that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Yarrow, and Permelia, thank you for all that you do, your leadership to help move the state program forward, and now your leadership to help us achieve a national program. We really appreciate everything you do, especially, as you say, you stepped out of your comfort zone to do it. I want to now just thank all of our speakers who are with us today. First Lady Tammy Murphy, Senator Cory Booker, Representative Mikie Sherrill, Brian Mcdonald, and of course Director Chun-Hoon, our friend Wendy. And just overall want to say that we are incredibly blessed to have wonderful leadership in our state for all of these important issues that we talked about today, for paid leave and for all of the supports that women and workers need to really manage their caregiving responsibilities and their work. We've made a ton of progress on this issue over the last several years, and we're going to make a ton more. Just want to encourage everyone to think about what can you do to get involved, because it really takes all of us to be successful. We're just getting started at the national level, so please join us and contribute what you can. And finally, just thank you all for your time and for being with us today. Thank you.